Is that, okay, just want to, can you put in parentheses economic so that when we start building the ecosystem, you'll see, and that's hint, hint, hint. If economics is one lens, what are some of the others that are in the room? This is where you start unraveling the issues.
Thank you. So what is also coming to my mind is that I'm just trying to walk in the shoes of the minister and try to interpret the messages that he left with us yesterday. And one of the key things that resonates with what you have said, Jivas, for me, is that this is actually the vision for the National Development Strategy 1. And he made reference to another National Development Strategy 2, which is not yet in place as far as I know, which might actually come from a place where perhaps the idea in government is actually to review progress of National Development Strategy 1. And I'm aware that they actually have been doing these reviews at the highest level since last year and even early part of this year, I think. So with this vision, what is also coming to my mind is to say, if we are walking in the shoes of a rewired leadership, who has got the right mindset and the right heart set? What does that look like? What does that feel like? So that we can sort of couch it in such a way that we are making an offer to say, because his ministry is concerned with competences and skills. So I'm already thinking that it already presents a boundary or a container in which we have to articulate so that at least it is aligning with the role of the ministry. We are positioning our offering to meet the strategic intentions of this ministry. And therefore, this is what we think it might look like or it might feel like. Because to some extent, it feels to me like he's not completely clear himself about what this opportunity might entail. And therefore, is in our effort to co-create agenda with him, I feel that we need to sort of bring some level of clarity around that future ideal in terms of how it might look like and how it might feel, so that it can then drive that agenda. The opportunity for me, which is a low-hanging fruit, which is what we discussed last night, is already the fact that the ministry is new. While it is new, it already presents a very good opportunity because there's no institutional memory or history to piggyback on. So we're really starting on a very clean slate. So let's take advantage of that and help him to frame what that could actually look like so that he can be more confident. But I think wearing his heart in terms of what that ministry's intention is. That's really my initial thoughts to this. Thank you.
You talked about the need to look at that human-centered and the heart-centered. And I know that you were responding here. What ends up being picked up is establish a frame for the new ministry. Does that frame, are you saying start with preparing those who are leading the design of that frame? Because you see how that's a little different, right? When I talk about the preparation to get to the future state, is that okay if we?
No, I'll just say I heard something in addition to that. What I heard, the minister was talking about competencies. And so what I heard you saying is, let's say what those competencies are, and then let's attract people and create the conditions to attract people who have or can develop those competencies. Is that part of it as well?
And we don't want to guide you, but what we are doing is listening from what I'm hearing is the development, the competencies, almost the preparation.
Yeah, and just so that and on that, if you would just write on, see what we're trying to get to is a set of conditions that we can create that are written in such clear language that they sort of become, these are the agreements that we have. We're going to create this. And so it's very easy to describe a situation, but out of that, we want to pull these key conditions. And so the key condition I actually heard was competencies. Like there's something about competencies. And just like I heard there's a key condition above, which had something to do with positioning OD as a key economic driver, right? That would be the condition. And so if we phrase things that way, we start to describe a future state that we can look at gaps against. Because if I were to write, okay, the competencies were this, the ability to lead a change journey, the ability to lead from the heart, the ability, right? This list, then I can take that and I can look at the present state and I can say, well, how are we doing against that? Where's the gap? And then planning actions becomes easy, right? So what we want to have, we're framing things so that the plan just naturally emerges. But that only happens if we get the conditions really clear. Does that help? Yes. Okay. All right.
Thank you. And I think as we map our road, we need to understand the strategy that is driving us towards 2030, like a colleague said. And for us to understand that, we need to understand NDS1. And we need to identify where the ministry falls under on those principles. It's good that we have got the human capital principle. And if we understand that, because one goal of NDS1 is that of making sure that we have these necessary skills that can drive the strategy or that can drive the attainment of Vision 2030. And also we need to understand the performance management system which the government is using, the IRBM, because that's the driver which the government is using, and is also that's the system that is embedded in the performance contracts for the ministers, for the permanent secretaries, for heads of state-owned enterprises. So our understanding of those two, together with the Vision 2030, can then help us to see how we can help the minister. And I'm sure this is why the president came up with this ministry. It is to drive that agenda and make sure that Vision 2030 is attained through the NDS1 and NDS2.
If I may just comment on the issue of competencies and performance management, I think one area that I've noted is the HR practitioner. Many employees having the highest qualifications in the land, but are we using those skills and competencies effectively to achieve the goals that we want to achieve? So that would be my contribution.
Thank you. To me, it's not so much about competences when we're talking about people that are in the public service. Because if you remember, the minister referred to a situation whereby these people have gone to the same institution, they have the same qualification, but the fact that one is in the private sector, there's delivery, there's performance. The fact that the one is in public service, there's nothing happening. So to me, it's more to do with the mindset and the heart set for the people that are at national level leadership in public service. So when the minister was saying to the Botswana guy, the project that you're doing in Botswana, can we do it to reorient people that are in the public service so that they've a different attitude towards performance and delivery? I tell you what, I have had a stint with the public service. I can tell you this much. There are good documents that have been done about brain drain, addressing the brain drain, and there are strategies that are good. If you heard what Mr. Nema said yesterday, he said there is need for political will. People in government, they are experts. If someone leaves government and becomes a consultant, they are demanded the world over. But when they are in the government, no deliver. Someone can be an expert in the private sector, take them to government, and nothing happens. That's the problem. So we can continue reinventing the wheel and do good papers, documents, give the ministers, they just accumulate dust. So the problem is to say, how can OD help the Zimbabwean national leadership that we have a mindset shift and a heart set shift, so that these people that are serving in the public service will deliver. He referred to something else. He said, when we take these kids to universities, they have expectations of the life that they will be able to achieve when they have the qualifications. But is the reward system in government commensurate with the expectations of the people that they recruit? Because you can't recruit an expert to tell an expert what to do. So you need to really dissect what is the problem, so that you'll be able to proffer solutions to the Zimbabwean situation. And
I love it because you're highlighting a hyphen. What's the hyphen he's highlighting? It's what? It's private.
Even
and it's reversed depending on what part of the world you're in. So now we need to come and look at it from the context of Zimbabwe and the experience of others. But you're mentioning a tension that Richard and I are dancing around, but we don't know exactly what it is because we come from a culture that is completely the opposite. Are we making sense? And this is where the collaboration and the learning comes on. So let's just stay with that one for a second.
Sorry, before your contribution, is it correct to then say that in the government sector, there's no accountability? Because in the private sector, you've got your KPIs, and if you don't meet those KPIs as a director, for example, Dr. Goba will tell us that you'll be under fire. Is that a same structure? Do you have that a similar structure in the public sector? Or just trying to understand why a professional like Dr. Goba performs well in the private sector, but when she goes to the public sector, nothing happens.
Okay. It was the minister, or I don't know if it was the minister or it was the people that were commenting on the minister's presentation, to say, when we have a minister here and we have a program, people just come to sing praises and to speak what that politician wants to hear. And in doing all the RBMs, the strategies, the NDS1, they just look at where the wind is blowing and they want to comply. So that they just keep their jobs and get the packs. They know what needs to be done. They know. And government has good systems that they've put in place. They have a department called Corporate Governance Unit. Qualified people, competent people, they know. But a PEMSEC, a head of a parastatal, will just see what, for me to be politically correct, what am I supposed to do? It has nothing to do with the development. It has nothing to do with getting us to 2030 vision. It's just for me to survive for today.
I would love to pan it. Can I beg for 30 seconds just to check in on our process? Because my role is to make sure that we're on track and we're able to deliver the conversation. So I want to play that role if that's okay. Yeah, absolutely. You were next. 100%. So here's the thing is that there's the situation with everything we're saying and we're observing. And we can easily go into a description of the world and how the world works and what we want. And that's actually not what we're trying to do here. We're actually not trying to have a political conversation or those conversations are essential. They need to occur. But what we need right now is just a list of the conditions we need to create, regardless of how they are right now. So it's very easy when you start talking about the future. If I say, I want the future to be this condition, everybody is, together and they're, I don't know, you named a number of really important conditions. Could you give me one that you were saying that was, just this future state, this impractical future state, this dream that you're leaning towards, that all your passion is coming from, just one thing from it. What would one condition be? Perfect. And what's interesting is that's all we need to put right now. And then we need to go from there to a separate discussion about what's the current state. But first we need the list of the things we want to go to, and then we can do this gap analysis or discussion in the current state, because we've got to decide which gaps to solve what order. We've got to get to two places together. First we need to know this ideal future state. Then we have to talk about the gaps in the current state. Then we have to get to two places. What are our priorities and what are the breakthroughs we're going to create? And the priorities are the things we do next. And the breakthroughs are the things we have to organize because they're hard. They're the places that we're going to have to innovate together. We're going to have to solve the tough things. So if we were all on the same page about those four things, this impractical future that just feels impractical, the actual gaps in the current state, it would be wonderful if we had data, wouldn't it? If we got to a place with data, the priorities we're up to together and the breakthroughs we're going to create. If those four things are true, then we're on a journey together. But if any one of those is missing, we can't move together. So what I'd like to do is just let everybody share what they want to share, but I want to make sure that you end up with a list of conditions, because if we're going to make our time, we probably have 10 minutes left to get a list of conditions and then move to the next thing. If that's okay, can we follow that process together a little bit? And I'm giving the mic over now. Thank you very much for letting me share the process.
Thank you. Thank you. I finally have the mic. Okay, what I wanted to mention was that I think the problem with our public sector, it's basically the same throughout the Southern African region. And what I see as a solution to this problem, comparing what is happening in private sector and public sector, the difference, the people within the public sector are well qualified, like it has been said. But the difference between them and private sector is that there is no one who's actually monitoring the deliverables within a government. Not only that, I'm not sure whether they even do appraisals, but if they do them, there are no consequences for that. So I think then for me, what we need to change would probably even start at the structure of government. If I'm your supervisor, you have to be accountable to me as your supervisor. But then now the problem, and in Siswati, they have that vocabulary which says, hulumende agana manyada, which means if you are employed by government, you can do anything, you can be absent at work, no one will bother. Even your supervisor, no one will bother. So unless we change that mindset, so that we know there are consequences. People never get fired in government. Even if there would be some commission of inquiries with whatever mismanagement of funds, whatever it is, those reports will just be there. No one will ever be disciplined or face the consequences. So I think the only change that we need to do within the public sector is to make sure that people are held accountable, people are disciplined according to the procedures that are there. If you have to be fired, you are fired. You will do it with 1 or 2 people. People will learn. But as long as it is business as usual, nothing is going to change. No matter which beautiful document you will bring, it is not going to work. Thank you. Yes. So that's all we need. Right? For us to move together, monitor the results, key conditions, and move because then and then if someone already said that, we don't need to say it again. We just need to move to the next thing so that we can be on a journey to get done. Does that make sense? Yeah. Because and it has to do with what we're trying to do. To really just talk like and there's the intention of trying to put together different contexts. So I may feel like I'm pushing back and saying it's not disrespectful and this is not the night, please tell me. Touching the stove, please tell me.
Tell me if this applies here. What we're trying to get to is what's the key sentence. But the way that we speak is that we give you the story behind what I'm going to tell you. The story, the experience, and I think what we're looking for is what is it? It's almost like you have to reverse the conversation. We're not telling you have to do the first part first, but what you want to get to is what is at the core of this. But if you don't tell the whole story, you won't know what you're trying to get to, and that's the bottom line conversation that would make you do that. Does that make sense? Does that help you? All right. Is everybody feeling okay about that? Yeah. Because a lot of times outside of context, that feels like you're asking us to speak American, get to the bottom line, and that's not what we're doing.
No, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. If you can flip over the flip chart, I want to propose another condition. So we're talking about establishing a frame for the new ministry. And the condition that's coming to my mind that aligns with that is to actually have an institutional structure or form and a culture that is ideal for the achievement of the ministry's objectives.
The structure. There's something around the structure.
Thank you very much. If you can flip the chart again. And then to end this one, I suggest that you add job opportunities and high quality of life for Zimbabwean citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone.
My input on this is that the Ministry of Innovation and Innovation and Skills Development is one single operating environment or a subsystem within the system, right? The role of the government system, or maybe government as a system, is to coordinate the workflows and the resources, which is the operations and the resources of other subsystems. And which means that when we look at other aspects of OD, we have to look at also issues of collaborations and partnerships. If the minister has got a vision, I don't think that vision can be carried out only by the Ministry of Innovation and Skills Development without such important collaborations and partnerships, meaning that the vision should be shared amongst other ministries and even the subsystems. So in this case, we also speak of visionary leadership because amongst those who are responsible to carry the vision forward, you might realize that there are those who don't even have the same or share the same vision. I like what my sister have said yesterday. I think it was Lucia, when she was alluding at the fact that if you want to carry forward your transformation agenda, there are those that we should leave behind. We cannot move with every Jack and Jill, even those that are not committed in the process. Also, I want to emphasize on what my sister Tsotsi have said on value-based culture. I think that is also important. I know that we define culture in many ways and we always find reasons why we cannot change the culture. But I think what is important is for those that are in leadership who are carrying the same vision to have value-based culture for them to carry the vision forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any more contributions? This side, we have a hand.
If you can allow me, on page 11 of the NDS one, I actually am surprised about the statement. I'll read it. So they're saying the implementation of NDS 1 will require a mindset change and a new way of thinking and doing business. I think that's our key, right? That's the condition. And it's already there in the strategy document. So let's unpick that a bit more.
Thank you. So what I'm noticing is we're starting to, because we started with that as a condition and we've sort of, so we're actually at probably that 80%. We actually probably have about an 80% list. We can add more conditions later. But what I'd like to do is we check in, we've had feedback online. So we need to check in on the online comments and see what, if it adds anything. And then we need to turn our list quickly into a list, identify the conditions, and then we'll talk about the gaps. We'll move right into what are the things we would need to do to close those conditions. It doesn't mean that later we can't come back and add a new one that we noticed that was missing, but it's just we can start to progress to kind of the next stage. What do they have online?
From online, Christine Mushibwe, who said, as for the competency, let's align with the current global direction. That is communication, critical thinking, technology, ability to transform theory into practice, creative problem solving, collaboration, As of the public and private sectors, the public sectors tend to have rigid, impenetrable systems that are bureaucratic and driven by government of the day. And there's a question there, what's the definition of a high quality life?
So what I'm noticing about this is, well, what do you notice about what conditions are in there? High quality of life is a condition. So we'd be able to do a gap. We'd be define that when we look at the gap. What, is there anything else in there that's a condition? Competencies and skills? Okay. Those seem to be the big ones. Because creative problem solving and collaboration, those would be under, those are kinds of competencies and skills. Okay. Is that all the comments online? Okay, terrific. Okay, so, yeah, so what we need, so let's look at what we have. And if we need to take this and just take, like, you take 2 minutes over here behind the curtain, and let's just make this into a list of conditions that we can then lead a conversation around gap analysis, the gap doing, and let's leave some space underneath each one. So it's the condition and then enough space to add stuff, and the condition, enough space to add stuff. And then Manuel, you're going to come up and you're doing a handoff to your partner in crime here, who's going to then lead the conditions discussion. Okay, so we're just going to take a minute or two to get organized, and you guys can do what you want. We'll be right back to everybody. Yeah. Get a coffee if you need to.